Hi, and welcome back to the channel. So today, Drifter and I thought that we would go over both the highlights and maybe the not so highlights of each state on our Appalachian Trail through hike. So, without further ado, let's start with Georgia. Drifter, do you want to go first? You want me to?
No, I'll let you go first. You like to be in charge.
Georgia. So I came up with a couple of things. It doesn't have to necessarily be a one-word description, but we'll keep it as short and sweet as we can. For Georgia, I have it as being, for me, excited. We are starting our trip, and so not only excited but a little nervous to undertake 2,100 and how many miles? Too many. And of course, cold. It was cold in Georgia. What else? Oh, and I fell down.
A lot.
I fell down in Georgia on Blood Mountain. No less. What do you got, Drifter?
I got that Georgia was cold. Drifter don't like the cold. Drifter froze. It was 7 degrees in Georgia and 9 degrees. And we were excited to get on the trail, start out the full trail instead of our section hiking we'd done in the past. And I don't know, I didn't have a lot of good stuff to say about Georgia. It was just so cold. But I will say that when we stayed at a Hidden Pond hostel, the pipes were froze in one of the bunkhouses, and we got very lucky that the caretaker there, Roger, he let us stay inside one night, and that was wonderful because it was 46 degrees out in the bunkhouse. Granted, it was 7 degrees outside, but it was very much warmer inside, and we'd like to thank Roger for that. That was
thank you.
Yes, that made the Georgia stay better. But like I said, I don't remember. There was a couple views in Georgia, but not many. It was just bitterly cold. So, and the approach trail was brutal. That was probably the worst hiking in Georgia.
Yeah. Beautiful waterfall, though.
And then we move on to Tennessee.
No, North Carolina.
North Carolina. Well, North Carolina was cold, too.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got for North Carolina?
I've got a blizzard. It was a blizzard coming out of Bly Gap. It was a mess. And what else do I have? Gotta make sure I can read this, right? Oh, yes, because of all the snow, I slid around a lot and slightly tore my meniscus. So we had that going for us. But we did see Laurel Falls. That was beautiful. And there were a lot of beautiful sunrises in that area. We were so early that there wasn't a whole lot of tree coverage, so we got a lot of pretty sunrises. How about you, Drifter?
North Carolina. My favorite part of North Carolina was, I believe that's the section with the balds. You go across Jane Bald and some other balds, and the trail kind of opened up, and that was beautiful.
Yeah,
and
in the Roan Highland area.
It was still very cold, and when we got to Hot Springs, we decided to take a few days off, and we got in the hot springs, and kind of a glorified hot tub, but it felt really good considering how cold it was.
Yeah.
And the bad parts was the blizzard, and we woke up to 6 inches of snow, and winds, and just like a Michigan blizzard.
Yeah.
And that's really what I remember about
quite
North
the whiteout.
Carolina.
Trying to get to the shelter, it was pretty well a whiteout.
The NOC, there was a lot of confusion in the NOC, but we ended up getting a pretty nice room there. So, yeah, and the sunrises and sunsets were really beautiful.
And I got to rehab my knee for an extra day at the NLC, which was needed.
And then we moved on to Tennessee.
Let's see, what do you got for Tennessee?
We had one really good day in the Smokies. It was pretty brutal the rest of the time, but we had some beautiful views, and uh, we ran into some drama there with a lost tent, and we'd really like to say a big thanks to G-Man, who shuttles out of Irwin.
Yes.
He really helped us out,
Mm-hmm.
and that was much appreciated. We slack packed with him a little bit through there too, so
Yeah.
just we ended up the Smokies. A lot of people skipped the Smokies that started when we did, and we kind of muscled through it for the most part. It was freezing rain, snow. Our boots were frozen. We couldn't get them on. We did have one really good fire inside the fireplace, inside a shelter, and that warmed us up and kind of got our morale up a little. So
We did have one really nice day.
and the fire towers were kind of nice too that we saw
Mm-hmm.
through there.
Yeah, I think out of the 7 days through the Smokies, 5 of them either snowed or rained or both. And 2 of them were decent. Well, no precipitation, let's put it that way. And 1 of them was very nice. For me, yes, the Smokies and the ice and the frozen clothes. It rained, and then so we were soaking wet, and then we stayed in the shelter, got up next morning, and it had gotten so cold that everything froze. So we had to put frozen stiff clothes back on and hightail it into town. So we ended up getting into Gatlinburg and was able to dry out. We did get a new tent in Tennessee. Drifter referenced that, so that was a positive, a new tent.
Hats off to Uncle Johnny's for that.
Yeah. They got us over to the outfitter. And then in that same fiasco with the tent, the Southern Cookie Lady is right down there. I forget the name of the gap, but we got down there and we were waiting for G-Man, and she saw us, and so we were talking to her a little bit. She offered us a pop and a cookie. She hadn't even really, we were some of the first people coming through there. I think it might have been the first hiker she had seen this season. So she got us a couple cookies out of the freezer and a couple sodas, and she gave me a cheese stick, and very nice. She actually offered us a ride into town the next day if we needed to go into town to, get a tent if they didn't have something what we needed in Irwin. So she was very lovely. That's what I have for Tennessee.
Then we moved on to Virginia, and I really enjoyed the Shenandoahs. It was it got warm there too, off with the hat. Yeah, it was warm in Virginia, and we did a lot of slack packing with a hiker that we had hiked with earlier in Georgia. His name was Hard Rock, and he slack packed us through quite a few miles in Virginia, and that was really nice and really helpful. And after we got done hiking for a day, we got to hang out with them and go out to eat and kind of shoot the bull around the hotel, and it was very enjoyable. And the scenery started getting towards spring, and we did have some cold through there too. We had 56-mile-an-hour winds and below zero temps in the Grayson Highlands, so it was kind of a cross between. It was getting warmer, but when we got in the higher elevations, it was really getting cold. The waysides were basically all of them were closed except one, and them are the little stores and places we can get stuff to eat through the Shenandoahs, through the national park. So that was kind of a blessing and a curse. Saved us money because they're really expensive, but we're kind of counting on
Real food
there. And we also got a lot of rides from a guy named Paul York. He really helped us out in Virginia too. He's a great shuttle driver and very caring, and very good conversation with him for sure.
Yeah, he was awesome. He shuttled us at the Grayson Highlands area. He's out of Marion, out of the Mary Inn, but we spent three days, I think, or
Maybe
4
3
days.
days slack packing out of Marion.
Yeah, so he picked us up way up at Grayson Highlands and ended up all over the place with him, so we could get those miles, and trying to do it in a way that we weren't in the 56-mile-an-hour winds.
I had read a lot about, before we went on our hike, that people said that when you get done with your hike, you're going to remember a lot of the views but you're going to really remember a lot of the people too. And I found that to be very true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Virginia for me, yes, spring sprung in the lowlands, and started seeing a lot of deer, especially in the Shenandoah National Park, just a ton of deer. And we did like Drifter said, some slack packing, both in the Shenandoahs with Hard Rock. Thank you very much. And also around the Grayson Highland area, Marion, that whole piece of it. So that was pretty nice.
Then we moved on to West Virginia, and that's a pretty small. There's not very many miles in West Virginia, but it is the home of the ATC, and you get in, go to Harper's Ferry and get your picture taken outside the building. Mm-hmm. And I really don't have much for West Virginia.
No, I've got, because it is kind of small, Harper's Ferry, of course, because, we were there, and did get our picture taken and put in the book, and we stayed, I think we zeroed that a day there, I'm not sure, but we wandered around town. I think we sent some stuff, did a little swapping out of gear. Sorry about that. Yeah, for West Virginia, so Harper's Ferry, we took a zero there and sent home some winter clothes and made sure we had the summer gear because it started getting hot. So that's about it for West Virginia, really.
I was going to mention, too, I think we spent a couple days in Harper's Ferry, actually, because it was a very historic town.
Yes.
And there was a lot of history to go look at the buildings and such. So I think we spent a couple days in Harper's Ferry. The weather was getting pretty warm at time there, and we just wanted to relax a little bit. And so I think there was going to be a storm coming, and we might wait it out. That too, so it's a very historic town, and it's a town worth, if you're driving or hiking, spend some time in Harper's Ferry. It's unique.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't mind going back there again, just for the battlefields and the Civil War history and everything. Okay, next up, Maryland, another small state. And I've got so there's a lot of Civil War stuff going on in that whole area, but yeah, it's a very historic state, and where the trail goes through, there's a lot of history, there's a lot of signage talking about different battles that were in that area. So that was really nice. And I know it started getting hot. It was a little hot spell. This is going to be a theme. So I remember one day just stopping because it was so hot and just putting our feet in the creek for a little while before we kept going for the rest of the day. What else? Oh, we were going, I don't remember I can't remember off the top of my head the names of the park, but it's a park to park race that they do. I guess it's an annual thing where you start at one park and you go I forget how many miles, however long Maryland is.
One of them was Penmar Park.
Yeah, so you go Penmar to what the other one is. Anyway, and so there were a ton of race runners out there in the woods. It's not something you expect to see. We got up to what we thought was, trail magic, and no, it was a way station for the runners. But that's okay. That was fun to see everybody. And then I think Drifter probably mentioned this too, but the original George Washington Monument, and it's a state park, and that's where one of the race endpoints was, at that Washington Monument. But that's really cool. If you're ever in that area, you should check it out. It looks like a beehive.
What I remember, one of the things I remember the most about Maryland was we waited too long to put our rain gear on one day, and it was a torrential rain, and we had only left the hotel, got a shuttle out of the hotel, and we'd only, I don't know how many miles we hiked, but it wasn't a lot. And we were freezing. I mean, we waited too long to put the rain gear on. We got wet. It was going to drop. Temperatures were going to drop that night. And we just decided to call our shuttle driver, Roger, who shuttled us a few times, and a very nice gentleman. And we ended up going right back to the hotel that we had just left because we were going to wait out that rainstorm. And we were just too cold, and with the temperature dropping, it was hypothermia weather. It was hot in Maryland, but it also had some very cold times. And one of the things that was kind of cool about Maryland was we met a hiker who, he had a different name at the time, but he ended up changing his hiker name to Blues Clues, and we ended up running back up with him, met him, and I'd say hundreds of miles later.
Yeah.
Up in Virginia, I believe, or
I think it was Vermont, actually.
but yeah, we ended up running into Blues Clues, and he was hiking with the Meander and McGee's at the time, and we pretty much hiked on and off with them all the way up into New Hampshire, up into the White Mountains.
Yep.
But so it was kind of cool meeting him in Maryland and then having a reuniting with him back so far down the trail.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what do you got next? Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania, I got a new backpack in Pennsylvania because my other one was hurting my shoulders. I have shoulder issues, and so I got a new backpack, which was wonderful. I finished the trail with a new one. Osprey Kite is the model. And we got to stay with some friends in Pennsylvania, which was really cool. Sandra and Joe. I've known Sandra pretty well all my life. I think maybe since we were 3 years old. So it was great to stay with them overnight. They hosted us, and we went to dinner and got ice cream and stayed at their place and hit the trail the next day. So it was really, really fun to catch up. Of course, Pennsylvania, it's Rocksylvania, so we started encountering lots of rocks in the second half of Pennsylvania, which is where we also, at the Knife's Edge, saw a rattlesnake for the first time. So that was fun. It was just sitting on the side of the trail, sunning itself. It looks like it had just shed its skin recently because it was still laying on the trail as well, and the rattlesnake was on the side of the trail right before you get to like the dirt. So it didn't even care that we were there, but we saw that. And then we got stuck in a thunderstorm one day, knowing it was going to rain. So we found a spot up on this ridge, which probably wasn't the smartest move, but we were there was really no other place to go that we knew we would get to a place to set up in time. So we got to this campsite and set up our tent where there is, if you're out hiking, and you will see like these clearings where the telephone poles run or the gas lines run. So we were up there on one of those clearings. So we had trees on one side and trees on the other side, and then on the like north-south sides, it was open. So it was like a wind tunnel, and man, it opened up and poured. Like it thunderstormed like crazy.
50-mile-an-hour wind.
Yeah, I think it was. And it was a good test for the new tent, which held up perfectly. But that was fun. What do you got, Drifter?
Pennsylvania. One of the highlights of Pennsylvania was a shuttle driver named Derek Nusky, I believe is how you say his name. And we got quite a few rides from him and great conversation. And he was a huge sports fan. So he was super into the Phillies and the Eagles, and the rides were enjoyable, talking sports. Didn't get a lot of that on the trail, so it was very nice talking sports with him. And we stayed at the Iron Master's Mansion, which is a really historic and cool place. But I was a little disappointed about the condition of it and how it was ran. But it's a cool historic building that's a must-see on the trail. And yeah, I would recommend seeing it. I don't know about staying, but because it's such a historic place. And
yeah,
I don't really have much other for Pennsylvania other than I was gonna say I stayed in my least favorite hotel in Pennsylvania in Delaware Water Gap, but I had forgotten about Pearisburg, Virginia.
Oh,
Pearisburg,
yes.
Virginia was number one for worst hotel, but Delaware Water Gap was pretty close. But
It was way cleaner.
they did have a Dunkin', and you could go get breakfast at the Dunkin', and I liked that. They had good coffee and excellent donuts.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of my memories of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so Iron Master Mansion, I got bad news when we were staying there, and it was, kind of not, one of my coworkers had passed away, so we ended up having to come home. So we ended up getting off trail in Pennsylvania for about a week to come home, go to the funeral, and then go back to the trail. But yeah, a whole bunch of stuff going on in Pennsylvania. All right, Jersey.
And when we were off the trail in Pennsylvania, we also met some hikers that had been following us on our YouTube channel in Pine Grove. Is it Pine Grove, Pennsylvania?
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And we met...
Yeah, Jane and John. And they're from New Hampshire.
Hanover,
New Hampshire. So we were sitting in a McDonald's, and John come walking in, and he's like, "Hey, I know you. You're Blue." So we got to talking, and they invited us to get a hold of them when we got up to New Hampshire. So we were able to stay with them one night, but we'll talk about them in New Hampshire.
And then we moved on to New Jersey.
Jersey.
What do you got for New Jersey?
New Jersey. I have got, we saw a rattlesnake on the trail. I'm sure that's on Drifter's list too, so I will let him talk to you about that, because we were warned that there was a rattlesnake on the trail. And
near the trail,
and she had to shoo him off, and she was not wrong. Lots of rain in Jersey. And also, there's a spot somewhere in New Jersey, and I remember this on our section hike too, where you coming down the trail, and it kind of takes a bend, and out of nowhere, if you're old enough, you remember what a telephone sounds like when it's ringing, the ones that used to hang on the wall. Well, I heard that one time on our section hike, and I heard it again on our through hike. Drifter didn't hear it, but I did. It was there. Anyway, I know I tried looking that up, and I remember finding some other people who had heard that. If you've hiked through that area and you've heard that, let me know. I'm pretty sure it was Jersey. And then there's also a thing called the telephone of the woods, and it's something that a group that deals with grief and therapy put just in the middle of the woods. You're walking along, and all of a sudden there's a sign, and it's got a beautiful poem, and there's a telephone, and you can call and you can talk to your loved ones. And we did a video on that, so if you want to, it's in our New Jersey section. What you got?
New Jersey had a small world experience that was pretty cool. We stayed in a town called Unionville, and we stayed at a Christian hostel, and the pastor that was running it actually went to my high school. He was quite a bit younger than me, but it was just very strange that out in New Jersey on the Appalachian Trail, and I run into a guy from my school that's running the hostel. So that was pretty cool. We liked Unionville. They had an ice cream place.
Yeah.
And the scenery started getting a little rockier.
Yeah.
We started getting to some rock slabs, some long granite slabs, and some climbs. And yeah, the rattlesnake. The girl told us there was a rattlesnake that was off the trail, and I think she's a little bit off on how far down the trail it was, because I think we'd just forgotten about it by the time we got up there.
I think we probably thought we should have come across it by the time we got down there, and we hadn't.
And I was walking along, and all of a sudden I heard the rattle, because I was staring at the rocks and not the side of the trail, and he was a little off the trail. But he was probably 2-3 foot away from me. He could have struck me if he wanted to, but he just rattled, and I backpedaled as fast as probably I've ever backpedaled. And that
rode me over.
Took about a year off my life. But that's kind of what I remember about New Jersey. And we were going to do this as a one video, but as you see, Blue yaks a lot.
Yeah, she does.
So this is going to be part 1. This will be the end of part 1, and we will continue our thoughts on the trail from New York through Maine in the next video. Thanks for watching this one, and if you're still with us, thanks.
Bye.